So looking more in detail how things are progressing in the various different regions of the world. And it's a pleasure to ask Professor Lee to moderate this session. Sir.
Thank you, Colin, for kind introduction. My name is Lee Hyun-ho, representing 5G Forum in Korea. At this session, we will share the information, latest update in 6 regions. We have 6 speakers from the 6 regions. So first, let me introduce Dr. Luciano Leonel Mendes from Brazil. Let's welcome him. So my plan is that after all this presentation, we will have a short panel, but I'm not sure the time is already delayed. So, but let's do our best.
Well, thank you, Dr. Lee, for the presentation. It's really glad to be here. It's really an honor to represent the 5G Brazil in this conference. Yes, that's the one. Thank you. So, as you could see this morning, there are still a lot of steps for establishment of 5G. We are only beginning. And one of the points that we needed to discuss is regarding how 5G will be integrated with satellite systems. You know that 3GPP is working on that. It's first time that you can see that a system is born to be integrated with the satellite. Before 5G, the evolution was always separated. So you have satellite and mobile technologies evolving separately. So you are really interested in that, mainly because you needed to use satellites to provide. You need to provide the backhauling for remote areas. So as Dr. Gontijo was explaining, that's a huge issue in Brazil and the other countries as well. So you needed to have some solutions to provide backhauling in remote areas, and satellites is a good candidate. So this integration is very important. So I'll talk a little bit about this integration here, what you're thinking, how we're thinking to use this technology in Brazil, and also how the performance of the systems, what can you expect from the systems in terms of latency and throughput. I have also some field tests that I'd like to share with you, and some considerations at the end. So when you talk about 5G and satellite integration, you can see two main modes to do this integration. The first one is just providing the backhauling for the remote base stations, and also satellite can be the gateway for the users. So users can actually access the 5G network accessing by satellites. So we'll talk a little bit about both of them. Satellite as a backhaul, it's I would say, straightforward integration. The basic idea here is to provide a link between the base station and the 5G core using a satellite. And that can be used in 2 different ways. The first one is basically when you don't have terrestrial network available, which can be the case in remote areas. You might be in a situation where you need to provide 5G connection in an area where there is no fibers available, so satellite can be used for that. The idea here is that you can use legacy technology, satellites that are already in the air, to do this interconnection. So that's the most easy way to do this integration. One issue here is regarding the latency, which can be very high when you use gel satellites. So another way to do this integration is when the satellite provides the 5G service itself. In this case, there are also 2 ways of providing the service. You can have the GNODE be integrated to the satellite gateway. So in this case, the satellite is just converting frequencies. So the 5G signal goes up to the satellite and then is converting another frequency and then illuminates a given area. That's a very simple user case also. There is no big processing in the satellite. And in the case where power is an issue, we can also illuminate a terrestrial repeater, which is a very dumb repeater in the ground that then propagates the signals around an area. So those are the main cases that we're considering right now. And the two things that you can came to our mind is regarding what's the latency penalty of using this kind of solution in the backhaul, and can you expect to have low latency services in remote areas using satellite as a backhaul? So those are the main questions that you need to answer, and that's what we're trying to figure out by doing some tests in Brazil. So this is the setup that you have arranged. So basically what you can see here, you have a gateway where you inserted a server where you can provide some content, and this server is integrated to the gateway. That's what you call point B in this diagram. Point A will be the internet itself, it's the core internet. On the other side of the satellite link, you have a VSAT receiver, which is basically a DVB-T, the VS2 modem that receives the signals and also transmits the signals to the satellite. So it's just a common VSAT receiver, which is called point C. There you also have a server where you can put some applications to run. And then you integrate that with the 5G range transceiver, which is the terrestrial transceiver for providing 5G signals in remote areas. That's a proposal that Brazil and Europe are working together. And then you have the final user integrated to the system, access internet via this 5G range transceiver. So that's point A, where it's very important to highlight. It's where all the signals is coming from. So point B is going to be the server that's installed inside of the gateway. Point C is the server installed in the VSAT side of the network. And then point D is the final user. So just to highlight those points that are important for my presentation. So here what you have in terms of throughput, it's what we can expect in terms of data rate. And you can see that you have two kinds of measurements here. One is based on TPC connection, and the other one is based on UDP connection. So basically it's video and also for access internet. So you can see that the data rate it's about 90 megabits per second in terms of download and 35 megabits per second in terms of upload. So that's what you can expect in terms of throughput from the satellite system that you have. The terrestrial link that you have is limited to 30 megabits per second on both ways, so it's symmetrical. So when you do the measurements, we can realize in this table that there are two big differences here. The first one is regarding the UDP and TCP when you don't have the web accelerator. So you know now that all the web pages are very heavy, and in order to download a given site, you need to do a lot of requests. So if you do that request and you have a high delay link, what you have, it's a very low throughput. So that's why you can see here on the tip C, on line 2 of this table, you can see that there is a huge draw in the throughput. UDP does not suffer from this problem because it does not wait for any answer from the server. So just send the request and then wait for the content to be downloaded. You can minimize this problem by using an accelerator on the VSAT side. So basically what this accelerator does, they ask for all the content at once instead of doing that sequentially. So all the content is downloaded at once, and then you can improve the throughput almost to the capacity of the link. You can see here also that from point C to point D, the basically bottleneck is actually the 5G range link, which is limited to 6 megahertz in this application. So you cannot achieve more than 30 megabits per second. So that's what you can get from this scenario. But the most important is actually the latency. So what you can expect in terms of latency. You know that the satellite link introduces a very high latency. So you'd like just to measure how much it is. You know that from propagation side, you should expect 200 milliseconds for the signal to go from the Earth to the satellite, and more 250 milliseconds to go from the satellite to the Earth. So 500 milliseconds would be expected. So what you can see here is exactly that, right? So when you see from point B to C, which is basically the time for the data to go from one server in the gateway to the server in the VSAT site is exactly what we're getting. There is no more delays introduced by the processing the signal. It's basically the propagation of the signal via the satellite. One thing that's curious about these results is the delay from point A to point B, which is basically from the core network to the gateway. You are measuring here about 70 milliseconds, which is quite a lot. So if you're talking about low latency application, we cannot forget that the core must provide also low latency response. And in this case, we don't see that. So there is no low latency application if you don't have the 5G core. That's essential for the low latency application. And also you can see that in remote areas, there is more or less 7 milliseconds of delay. And in these cases, basically the problem is the size of the frame that you use in the 5G range transceiver, which is very long, to avoid problems with the multipath in 50 kilometers distance. So the larger the frame, the higher is the latency. So that's what you can get in terms of the terrestrial propagation. So the overall delay that you can expect when you use satellites is around the 600 milliseconds, which of course cannot be used for low latency application. And if you use terrestrial backhauling, that improves a lot, but still is 73 milliseconds, which is still a lot. And most of that delay comes from the core network. So what you can do in terms of solutions, how can you solve this? So one straightforward approach is to add CDN, content delivery network, or MAC, mobile edge computing, integrate to the base station. So basically you can put most of the content that is requested by the users on the base station site. And also all the applications that requires low latency information also runs on the edge. And with this, you need to open some gateway via the satellite for the control channel. So once you do that, you can expect to have a solution like that, where the satellite has the node B and also the MAC integrated, and then all the signaling from the satellite to the core network can be done via 5G. And that means that you can actually have a very low latency application in remote areas if you move forward in terms of satellite technology. So the main conclusion is that we can use satellite networks for backhauling in 5G in remote areas, and it's actually possible to have low latency application in remote areas when you use satellite, but in order to do that, you need to use MAC, and also need to integrate that to the core network in terms of all the control channels. So that's what I would like to present to you. Thank you very much for your attention, and you keep in touch. Thank you.
For sharing your detailed analysis using satellite link. And in previous session, Mr. Jose Contijo said that in Brazil, in 85% of population live in just 1% of territory, right? So in this environment, I think a satellite link solution is very indispensable. Okay, we'll have next speakers, Mr. Yukiko Kumura. He is the chairman of 5G trial promotion group in 5G map, and he's working for NT-DOCOMO on the 5G development. So let's welcome him with a big applause.
Sorry for waiting. Thank you for your kind introduction, Professor Lee. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Yukihiko Okumura of NTT Docomo, and I work as a leader of the 5G trial promotion group called 5G TPG in 5G MF Japan. And it is a great pleasure for me to give my talk in this session. And today I'd like to talk about recent activities on 5G system trials in Japan by 5G MF members. And it mainly includes 5G field trials led by Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communication, MIC Japan. This is an overall action plan of 5G MF towards 2020, and we are now accelerating practical implementations of 5G through the 5G system trials. From 2060, 5G TPG have been made discussion for the candidate of 5G system trials, including trial concepts and contents, and then the outcomes of this discussion was distributed as 5G TPG report version 1.0. And from 2017, by referring this 5G TPG report version 1.0, MIC planned and started 5G field trial project for 3 years, as Nakazawa-san of MIC mentioned earlier. At the same time, at the start of the 5G field trial project, 5G TPG has also started to support and cooperate these projects. During fiscal year 2017, first 6 field trial projects were carried out in Tokyo area and some regional area of our Japan, and then 5G international workshop was held to report achievement of trials, and also the first report on 5G system trials in Japan was published. In the last year, 2018, advanced 6 projects were promoted from September, and the outcomes of those projects will be introduced later. Towards the field trials in year 2019, 5G utilization idea contests were held by MIC all over Japan, and new project in 2090 will be started based on the results of idea contest. So this is an overview of MIC 5G field trials in 2018, last year. And there are 6 projects or groups of field trials that are categorized into one of EMBB, URLLC, and MMTC. Each group is leading by major Japanese mobile operators and research organizations that are NTT Docomo, NTT Communications, KDDI, ATR, SoftBank, Wireless City Planning, and each group has some related partners or stakeholders in vertical industries. These field trials with 6 groups used both 4.5 GHz and 28 GHz bands, and each group also evaluated characteristics of channel propagation for major trial environments. Now I'd like to briefly introduce the example contents of each trial groups. So regarding trial group 1, this is led by NTT Docomo, and the target use cases are entertainment, workplace, smart city, and medical services. As an entertainment use case, the 2 trials for watching sports are conducted for further usage in Tokyo Olympics and Paralympics stadiums. In the first one, they provide 5 transmissions of images of multiple 4K cameras, such as from viewpoints of wheelchair basketball players and from bird's eye viewpoints. And second one, they network connected a stadium to remote locations with high definition video and conducted experiments for supporting real time from remote locations. And next group, trial group 2, led by entity communications. And this group focused on entertainment and transportation applications in the high mobility terrain. They installed multiple base stations along trains in dense residential urban areas and verified video download, streaming delivery, and 8K video streaming delivery. In addition, the express train line, they conducted trial by uploading high-definition videos from trains running at high speed, assuming that live videos from trains are utilized for safe operations of railways. Third one is led by KDDI, and this group also focused on automobile services, remote control of construction machinery, 4K video transmission from drone, high frame rate video transmission in a golf tournament, and operation assistance of snow plow vehicle. In the trial of remote control of construction machinery, they using actual civil engineering sites and conducted remote control of construction machines, assuming dangerous sites where people cannot easily enter, such as during disasters. And high-definition images sent from two construction machines were used, and applicability actual operations was verified. And in addition, they tried a system that supports safe operation of snow plows by providing obstacle information by collecting their location information with road information before snowfall. At the same time, based on high-definition images taken by on-site vehicles during the snow removal work. Fourth one is led by ATR, and this group also focused on improvement of safety and security in a station, ICT education at schools, and improvement of layout flexibility in the factory. In trial for improvement of safety and security in station, based on 4K 360-degree videos from robots that patrol train platforms by remote control was introduced. And they conducted trial by station staff with VR goggles to quickly detect anomalies and go straight to where they occurs. And also conducted trial with tablets connected in the ultra-high-speed radio environment to translate questions from foreigners by running a translation application with voice recognition and guiding them by using rich contents, including video. And next trial are group 5, led by SoftBank. And this group focuses on truck platooning applications. In this trial, by following the lead vehicle driven by a driver, actual driver, and automatizing the platooning, which maintaining an appropriate intervehicular distance. The burden on drivers of the following vehicles can be reduced, which leads to fuel saving and mitigation of traffic congestion. In truck platooning, it is necessary for multiple trucks to exchange images and information with ultra-low latency. And they are conducted actual road, the platooning trial system. Last one, trial group 6, led by WCP, and this group focuses on smart highway and smart office application. They conducted a trial on wireless communication of things connected to a network called IoT using multiple concurrent connections, characteristic of 5G. In this field, not just 5G, but also heterogeneous network that combines 4G and other wireless technology is necessary to be effective. And next one, on highways, the conducted trial of sensors for detecting distortions of barricades supporting roads, and normally detection with 4G cameras for monitoring interchanges and smart highways that utilize data from equipment measuring traffic volume. In addition, they verified a smart office that connects sensors with networks by using wireless to monitor the health of staff and the work environment. So that's all for introduction of each Japanese 5G field trials in 2018. And details of those projects' outcomes were just summarized as a booklet of the second report on 5G system trials in Japan, and we would like to distribute it to delegates from each 5G promotion association during this meeting. Now, this concludes my talk, and thank you for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Okumura-san, for your very detailed example of your trial. I think the Japanese approach is very important because it starts with the collaboration with the local government, industry, operator together. So, frankly speaking, from Korean side, we learn good approach from Japan. Okay, next speaker is Dan Warren from Samsung UK. So he will give some latest update on Samsung as well as some activity in Korea. Let's welcome him.
Thank you. As noted, I am from Samsung Research in the UK. I have many hats that I wear. One is as the chairman of the 5G PPP steering board in Europe. The UK's situation in Europe is an ongoing discussion, so fortunately I'm not trying to wear that hat today. However, I'm putting my corporate hat on and then throwing it in a corner to talk about Korean commercial launches and progress to date. Hopefully the slides don't come across too much as a Samsung pitch. That certainly isn't the intention, and indeed there are some slides that I have removed because of that purpose. I want to talk about where we are though with the launches in Korea, some of the early trends that we are seeing from consumer uptake, and perhaps to align with some of the other presentation that we've seen so far, I will also add in some technical detail as well. So, as you're aware, and as Mr. Lee presented in the first session, all three Korean operators launched commercial service with smartphones in April, but that's actually the second part of a launch. So in December of 2018, services were launched in Seoul and 6 other metropolitan areas in Korea, primarily using mobile routers. That has seeded the market and seeded interest, which led on to the commercial launch with smartphones, which took place in April. Perhaps interestingly, alongside that initial launch in December, a number of trials, including things like Smart Factory, and also a 5G connected barista for remotely ordering and manufacturing coffees, were demonstrated by the Korean operators. Moving onwards, and for the rest of this year, there's increased rollout. So the coverage in Korea now covers 85 cities. Mr. Lee again mentioned a number of base stations, but there's tens of thousands of base stations operational within the Korean market. Moving on to the end of the year, the 3.5 gigahertz spectrum deployment, which is in place at the moment with all three operators, will be then complemented with 28 gigahertz spectrum as well. And that then leads us into the potential for full nationwide coverage within the next 2 to 3 years. Now, the Korean market is well recognised as early adopting of new technologies. It was at the forefront of 4G, particularly with high coverage 4G, and with 5G it will be very similar. There is considerable existing infrastructure which can be leveraged in terms of both fibre asset and base stations. And so the opportunity for the Korean market in particular to leverage 5G going forwards is very strong. Oh, I've gone backwards. So there's been a lot of discussion and a lot of news around the uptake of 5G in Korea. So even though the launch was only at the beginning of April, we are now in the middle of June. One of the worst things about putting a graph on a slide is that immediately you put it on the slide, it becomes outdated. So this slide was generated about a week and a half ago. The prediction at that stage was that there would be around about 1 million 5G subscribers in Korea by the end of this month. But last week, the news was released that 1 million subscribers has already been achieved in Korea. So the uptake is very rapid. The drivers sitting behind that, there has been significant levels of promotion by the operators. So there is a significant device subsidy across all 3 operators. There is also the intention to put in place tariffs which have elements within them which are over and above that which is currently offered in 4G, and in particular unlimited data plans have proved very popular. And then in addition to all of that, there are some 5G specific contents and services which are being implemented and are proving successful as well, some of which I will talk about in a moment. So as mentioned, all 3 operators have an unlimited offering, and all 3 are proving to be very successful. So as can be seen on this slide, all 3 of SKT, KT and LGU Plus are seeing high numbers of their 5G subscriptions in the unlimited area. The pricing is indicative. It's a slight uplift on 4G, but as mentioned, with the addition of unlimited data plans. In addition, there is the opportunity to host or tether additional devices, which is a trend which is existing in the Korean market already. But that means that data sharing on a single link can be implemented. And having said all of that, the limited offerings in the lower half of the slide, they are certainly comparable in price with 4G. And indeed are proving relatively popular as well. It's probably worth noting, of course, that in any new launch, the people who take that launch up first are technical early adopters, and as a result are more likely to be prepared to either pay a premium or to pay the extra for an unlimited bandwidth offering. I think that trend was seen globally with 4G, where unlimited offerings were taken up and used for a whole range of creative purposes, some of which were within the operator's intentions and some of which weren't. It shouldn't be a surprise that an unlimited data offering on a service which offers hundreds of megabits per second or gigabits per second speeds proves popular. So some of those services, particularly of interest, are things around immersive media, AR and VR, and cloud and VR gaming. So with immersive media, sport is a major attraction. Being able to offer additional video content, whether that is tracking of the ball, so motion tracking, something which is particularly prevalent, I think, in sports like baseball and golf. Wide view, being able to see the entire field of play on a section of the screen. Being able to offer a matrix view, so move within the field of play using multiple high-resolution camera content and move seamlessly from one camera to another. And indeed UHD movies, where ultra-high density screens are becoming increasingly available. That is a distinct category from AR and VR, and where particular interest is being generated in Korea is user-generated AR and VR, where one party may be generating content live and another party may be able to act as if they are there. And again, Mr. Lee showed some demonstrations of things like that. I have some videos on the next slide which may or may not work, but one of those is a first-person perspective skiing, which is generated from a set of glasses with cameras built into the glasses to offer the perspective of the actual person who's performing the skiing. Cloud and VR gaming, I think, is increasingly a trend as well. The previous presenters have both talked about MEC, and I think that MEC is a fundamental importance on top of the network infrastructure as with previous generations. Perhaps equally important, however, is network virtualization and at some point the implementation of slicing. So within the Korean operators' networks, all three networks have fully virtualized elements within them. That virtualization is not confined purely to the core. It goes down into the radio access network and also is fully virtualized in the management and network orchestration domain. So as we move more towards a fully virtualized network with the addition of MEC, the capability to locate content, to locate servers, to break out the user plane functions locally to reduce latency becomes increasingly simple. So here are some of the contents, and this, like I say, this may or may not work, and I might be about to give the gentleman sitting to my right slight spasms when I try. Oh, I've gone forward one slide. Let me go back. So
360도 촬영이 가능한 넥밴드로 지금껏 보지 못했던 장면을 리얼 360 통화로 보여주고 SNS에서 고화질로 360도 라이브 스트리밍 해보세요.
So there is an example of 360-degree content generation and sharing live. There is also the VR theme park, which I can try and play for you as well. Oh. They are short clips. You'll have gathered that I wasn't narrating them. On operator A, which you will fairly easily guess is SKT, social VR, where so this idea of personalized emojis and sharing a video content chat room exists as well. Oh, every time I click that. Let me try that one. Nope.
5X 소셜 VR.
So this is a
경기장은 같이 가지
shared
않아도
content and a
함께
shared
원하는
chat room. So multiple people watching the same content simultaneously, but sharing an as live living room experience. If you are excited by K-pop, this is a VR experience of I believe it may be a BTS concert. I hope I haven't offended anybody with my K-pop knowledge there. And then on the U+ network, they are particularly keen in immersive experience on live concerts. So this is again is a live concert experience. You have to be careful who you answer the door
타고는
to.
즐기는 태양의 서커스
오, 이 쫄깃한 일상 레알?
U 플러스 VR 우리 집 소파를 공연장 VVIP석으로
Okay, and then the last one is an experience of dancing with your pop idol.
잠깐만,
And again,
이거 아닌
so-
것 같은데?
나 완전 잘했는데?
이거 봐봐. 보여? 이 왼쪽 어깨에 스웩.
5G로 어떤 안무도 완벽 마스터
So I think what we're illustrating here is the ability for that 360-degree, 3 degrees of freedom content to be generated and played out and implemented within an AR and VR environment. Oh. So the last thing to say with regard to the Korean network launches at this time is the level of content that is being generated. So again, taking into account that this is early stage implementation, there is around about 22.4 gigabytes being generated by users with early 5G adoption. Now, again, that has to be taken into account with the fact that those are on unlimited data plans and they are early adopters. but it is close to 3 times the amount of data generated on average by 4G networks. And so to come back to the presentations from earlier in the day, I think it was FCC that commented that the 2 things that are required are infrastructure and spectrum. To maintain that kind of level of data across an increasing customer base certainly requires both. And I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dan Warren. And actually, I was surprised that Dan Warren know more than I know regarding Korean market, regarding 5G. So thank you for your effort to get nice materials. Okay, next speaker is Mr. Chris Pearson, the president of 5G America. So he will give you the high-level overview of North American, including Latin American market as well. Thank you.
Buenos tardes. One of the things that 5G America tries to look at themselves is very regional in what we represent. And so 5G America represents really LTE and 5G for North, Central, and South America, as far as trying to be a voice, trying to build consensus on really the things that need to happen to make 5G successful. The importance of 5G can't be undermined. We're all here at this conference for either a few days or hopefully you're here for the whole week. And there are so many impacts socially and economically of 5G. In this slide, this really represents building the network or being an enabler for innovation. So when you see countries that are up here speaking today about what they're doing for 5G, it's not just about technology. It's about much more than that. And if you look at what 4G did, it was fairly transactional. What 5G can become, if we can deliver on our promise, is way more transformational in how it affects how we live, how we work, how we play. So let's talk about, before, it was really about building your networks, being faster, better user experience with your smartphone. But as we move on, as you've heard from the presentations earlier, it's got to be about more than that. It's got to be about how your city can be more efficient. It's got to be how you can actually move, as in the one presentation, trucks and cargo and everything else more efficiently. For us to deliver, people are not going to hand us their wallets. We have to show them innovation. We have to do it in the Americas by saying, okay, what's the disposable income that we can go after? Can we be an alternate provider to the home or the business for fiber? Can we enable a new Uber or Airbnb or any of those type of innovation companies that have utilized our technology? So there's much more when you think about what 5G can do in the Americas or actually anywhere in the world. So let's talk about North America and what the trends look like. In North America, we're looking at the trend of hitting about 100 million 5G subscribers in North America by 2022. And if you compare that to the world market, we're going to hit 1 billion 5G by most forecasters or analysts in 2023. So the Americas, still is doing trials, still is doing use cases, but you'll see in my slide in a few moments, we're actually at the commercial phase. We are trying to get our networks built, or we are actually building our networks, and we are commercially deploying 5G in the Americas region. And here's our example. In the US, we have 4 national operators. And you'll see we have AT&T that's launched in late 2018 with a standardized, a 3GPP standardized mobile technology. It was basically to what can be considered a hockey puck, is what they wanted to call it, and a hotspot so that people could tap into that. We've also had a Verizon launch, a fixed wireless service, going after the home broadband market. It was a pre-standard launch. That was followed by Verizon doing a millimeter wave launch as well. We've had Sprint in May of 2019 launch a mobile 5G network on their 2.5 or sub-6. And finally, we have T-Mobile building out their networks, their 5G networks in 30 cities, and hasn't done a commercial launch yet, but they're doing the preparation. So you can see in the United States, we are moving forward, just as you also heard from many other countries, on 5G from a commercial side. In Latin America, it used to be said, well, when the rest, when the North America launches, it will be a few years, is what they used to say before you see like the first launches of 3G, and then followed in Latin America a few years. In 4G, it was the same way. Well, I'm here to tell you, I don't know if that story makes sense anymore. In Uruguay, which I know is a very small country, they launched 5G already. They did it on 28 gigahertz spectrum, millimeter wave spectrum, and it was quite a lot. They built it on 800 megahertz of spectrum. So that thought that, well, certain parts of the world, or even the Americas, there's going to be these delays in 5G, doesn't necessarily always fit anymore. And we don't think that's necessarily going to fit in Latin America, as many of these countries and operators are doing trials in Latin America and so forth. Next is, if you look at the trend of the United States or the Americas, we are one of the leaders when it comes to 5G in the world. Right now, the way we track it with Telegeography, one of our partners, there are 11 countries in the worldwide that have had commercial launches. Now, this is going to change pretty drastically, I think, soon. And we see that lots of operators around the world are very close, we hear, to making announcements or commercial launches, and a lot of them are just waiting for more devices. So we are very close to seeing many more. In fact, if you look at most of the folks that are tracking it, you're looking at 25 launches this year and 26 operators commercially launching next year. And we think in the Americas, we'll continue to see launches for 5G. So, actually, I've heard it a couple places, and Dan just mentioned it, or FCC mentioned it, but 5G Americas feels very strongly, just as you heard from those two speakers, that some of the recipes for success are more licensed spectrum and more infrastructure is the way they say it. We call it network density. And to do that, in the Americas region, we need to look at both very closely. If you look at spectrum, for instance, our FCC did a great job this morning talking about spectrum and how we're moving along on lots of it. And we are, in the US, a leader in millimeter wave spectrum. And we also have plans in the mid-band and other bands, and we need to have plans. If you look at the US, being a millimeter wave leader is just part of the story, because we need to look at low and mid-band. We need all bands for 5G to be successful in the Americas region and in the US. In Latin America, what we track at 5G Americas is that there's a lot of bands being considered. We heard from the Brazil this morning what they were considering. And when we track the various governments throughout the Latin America region, we know a lot of them are waiting for WARC 19 to understand really what's going to be approved before they make any final decisions on what their final considerations or allocations might be. But there's a fair amount of spectrum that's available in Latin America that's going unused or can be repurposed fairly easily compared to many parts of the world for 5G. So there's a lot to the story in Latin America as well as the US and North America. So The key trends or key takeaways from this presentation on the trends in the Americas. Number one, I don't know Spanish. No, just joking. Number one, 5G holds tremendous promise, both socially and economically. And that's why it's a priority for nations throughout the Americas region. Number two, we're at a critical juncture. We are seeing many launches in 2019, and we'll see many, many more in 2020. And third, the recipe for success in the Americas is more low, mid, and high-band spectrum, as well as streamlined processes for cell siting, so that we can get that infrastructure available to provide on the promise of 5G. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris. Next speaker is Madam Wang Jichin from CIST. So she is the chairperson of IMT 2020 Promotion Group, as well as the Standard Institute of CIST. So let's welcome her.
So thanks, Professor Lee's introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. It's my great pleasure to give the report for some progress made in 5G, and right now mostly from the IMT 2020 Promotion Group. So this is the promotion group structure updated, and it's just a minimal change from the working group level. So right now, mostly the working group work is, we can divide it into four categories. One is called a technical working group related to the 5G network and barrier network. Second is the 5G standard working group, more focused on 3GPP and ITU. Third is 5G trail. The last is for 5G applications, including CV2X and other applications. So first is China 5G trail. I think everybody knows China starting the 5G technical research and development trail from year 2016, and lasted about 2 years. So in the step 3 is the system testing. It's finished early this year. So in this year, we're starting with the skill for trail, which is leading by operators. So right now, those 3 operators already established thousands of base stations in 4 or 5 big cities like Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. And they also established 5G networks in over 20 and some over 40 cities. But in that cities is just in a very limited area, which is the main purpose is for cultivated for 5G vertical applications. So for the step 3 of phase 1 5G technical research development trail, the main purpose is for testing for single system, single terminal, and doing the interoperability between different system and terminals. So you can see the main contents here in step 3. We're starting from the non-standalone technical directions and transferred to standalone specifications. So as you know, the standalone specification is the main target network. So from the industrial level, we hope the 3 operators can speed up transfer from non-standalone to standalone. And especially from the terminal side, we asked for the terminal chipset and terminal vendors to fully support standalone and non-standalone dual-mode terminal at early next year. So during the testing, it's not only covering the micro base stations, but also covering some indoor distribution systems. So for the spectrum, it's including 3.5 gigahertz, 4.9, and also 2.6 gigahertz. So for 2.6 gigahertz is a new band, which is located to China Mobile for 5G use. So during the step 3 trial, we made a solid progress to establish 2.6 gigahertz industrial chain. So for this year, the main task is for interoperability between mobile terminals and infrastructure. We also introduced some new features like EuCNC. So for standardization work, we just follow 3GPP. So from the radio aspect, we can see we are more focused right now on release 16, and it will be finished March next year. And still, during this year, we already have some discussions for next release, release 17. But for both of these releases, the most enhanced direction is two categories. One is EMBB enhancement. The other is vertical industrial extension. So in the EMBB enhancement, there's quite important some working item like UE power saving, MIMO enhancement, and positioning. But for vertical industrial extensions, mostly there's some very typical and important scenarios extension like Internet of Vehicle, 5G new radio, V2X, and also the enhancement for 5G new radio URLC. In the right side, there are some potential directions for release 17. You see so many of them. So one topic is for NR light. I think that's a very important topic. That means we can satisfy with the third 5G scenarios, might say IoT. So for the network aspect in release 16, especially from 3GPP part, mostly is to promote some basic network capabilities, more focus on MEC, network slicing, and also enablers for network automations. So for next release, release 17, I think is quite similar with the radio part. They will do some standardization work to extension to vertical industrial. So some typical scenarios listing here is the Internet of Vehicles, smart home, and intelligence safeguard. So for security aspect, they will define many mechanisms for security. But in China side, as you see, we already submit security aspect like ZOOC 1 to 8 bit algorithm in LTE. So in 5G, we plan to submit ZOOC 256 algorithms. So right now we're just doing some preparation work of algorithm evaluation between such and 3GPP SS3. So some activities to ITU 5G standardization. As you know, during last year, China already submit the premium 5G technologies, which is 5G NR plus NB-IoT as one RIT. So July this year, China will finalize 5G technology submission. In end of this year, China 5G evaluation working group will have the primary report submission, and early next year we will have the final result submission. So next is about 5G barrier network. To fully support the 5G new architecture, so we need a very special 5G barrier networks. So in order to promote the development of 5G barrier network technologies and industrial get integration, that means right now in China, 3 operators, they have different solutions for 5G barrier network. So within IMT 2020 promotion group, we have a barrier network working group. So they released some white papers on 5G barrier network. So starting with the requirement, then we defined the architecture and some technical solutions, and also some optical models for 5G barrier networks. So related to the applications, one key area is the Internet of Vehicle. So the CV2X working group already have over 100 members, including the members from vehicle information and communications and the transportation fields. So this working group already published many white papers. You can see one is the related to the whole picture for CV2X. The other is MEC integration with the CV2X. Also released a series of test specifications to guarantee the interoperability and conformance testing. We also promote a lot of LTE V2X specifications covering from low layer to high layer. That means including the network layer, message layer, and also security and system layers. So during last year in Shanghai, we organized the worldwide first LTE V2X 3-layer interoperability demonstrations to include the chipset vendors, terminal vendors, and OEM vendors. So for this working group, since with the technology more and more mature, so it's starting with the technology innovation, but for this year, we'll do the testing and demonstrations. So we'll continue with the research on the LTE V2X large-scale testing, and also security and operation in order to promote the LTE V2X commercialized. So all this large-scale testing will be held in Wuxi and Shanghai, different areas. We also carry out the research on the 5G V2X use cases and 5G automatic driving. Still, we have 2 test band as the plan. One is the MEC test band used in LTE V2X scenarios. Mostly is to have some test for the MEC platform and to have the ability to open and API definitions. The other test band is for LTE V2X security. We'll establish the end-to-end LTE V2X demonstrations with security solutions. For the other applications, we have another application working group to promote convergence and innovations for 5G vertical industrials. So the main job for this working group is to uncover industrial requirement, create end-to-end solutions, and carry out demonstrations. So from the time schedule, you can see early of this year, mostly we'll finish the vertical industrial requirement study and started some solutions and technical verifications. So this just show some white papers and report already completed. Mostly is the requirement part, so we can already finish the 5G drone application requirement. Also report for the power grid control services, public security industrial requirement, and also some white papers in electronic information manufacturing, some report on new media business requirement. And starting with this year, we have some report and solutions for 5G network slicing and MEC requirement. So as a conclusion, with 5G is now really commercial use, and we think for IMT 2020 promotion group, it's really need to work together with the other industrial platform and all these vendors and to do some work. One is still continue with pushing forward the maturity of 5G industrial chain, especially for the terminal chipset and especially for the IC mode industrials. The other is in the field of 5G enhanced technologies and the standardization, especially to enhance the performance to support vertical industrial. And the third one is still the 5G vertical industrial and applications. I think it's a big challenge for 5G. So we should work together with vertical industrials to find out solutions and business models, and also some policies to support the vertical, especially the convergence applications, and to build cross-industrial ecosystem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Wang, for sharing the working group activities of each of 2020 promotion group. Regarding, it's very interesting that especially the CE-V2X working group, there are more than 100 members in just one working group. It's very interesting, and it reflects the industry interest on the 5G particular applications. Okay, we have our last speakers, Mr. Didier Bruce. He is the chairman of the trial working group of 5G IA. Let's welcome him.
Okay, so good afternoon. I'm also very, very pleased being here with you today and giving you some updates on what is happening from European perspective on 5G. And you will see last time we had a chance to talk in global event was in Rio, and I will explain you that a lot of progress has been achieved. So basically what we see in Europe, as it was already mentioned earlier today, we have a lot of activities still on trials and pilots, and we see step-by-step pre-commercial, commercial activities, and then also launch. So as it was said, Europe is clearly moving. Thanks. Europe is clearly moving ahead, and we expect to see further and further announcement and launch in 2019 and next year in 2020. So as you know, we already discussed that in previous events. It was also explained by Pierce earlier this afternoon. The 5G action plan was launched in September 2016 with already 3 major milestones, so 2018, 2020, and 2025. So we are clearly on good tracks for 2020 now with commercial deployment in at least one city per member state. And the target is obviously still to have, let's say, full coverage in 2025. So just to remind you also, it was mentioned in the previous talk, that one of the targets is also 5G and vertical, and to ensure that we will, let's say, not necessarily have first 5G everywhere in all countries in Europe, but clearly the right 5G that serves citizens and also vertical sector, and to be sure that the 5G will be of maximum value globally for the community. So there is a lot of work that is done at this stage with different vertical sectors in order to progress this strategy in Europe. So what we are planning from a trials working group perspective and from the 5G IA perspective is to Can you please support this? Yeah, I can also do without slide. Okay, thanks. So we're gonna, from a trials working group perspective, release in September the so-called roadmap version 5.0. It will be released. It will include the latest updates on both what we call the vertical cartography, so basically identifying the different trials and pilots in vertical sector achieved in the context of the 5G infrastructure public-private partnership, and also the so-called platform cartography, where, as you know, there are a lot of projects, and you can see some of the booths, some of the demonstrations during these days in Valencia, where we see the platform and the use of this platform in order to develop specific vertical use cases, vertical tests, and trials. So we just see, starting 1st of June, a set of 7 new projects in the context of the PPP that will boost the vertical test in the context of the European program. So what we're going to do in September, we're going to release the latest update on this, and we will also spot on 10 specific trials and pilots that have been achieved in the context of the PPP. So as you can understand, there is clearly a lot of activity, a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm in Europe on the different activities. So as you can see on this slide, this is a slide, the time plan, where you see on top of the slide what is developed in the context of the European action with respect to commercial test, commercial deployment, but also the 5G infrastructure public-private partnership. So a lot of move, again, a lot of action on this. You see the standardization obviously progressing, not only in 3GPP, but also in other bodies, globally the development of the ecosystem and fora. And what is good is that we see more and more interaction with vertical association. And I will give one specific slide to highlight that we are developing specific memorandum of understanding and interaction with vertical association, just to name 2, like 5G AA, 5G Asia, and so on. So let's start, after this panoramic view, to give some specific spots on European action. So you have heard Pierce showing the one slide for the scorecard of the observatory. So the observatory has been officially launched last year. So it's really an entry point. If you want to know what happens on 5G in Europe, we have a lot of operators, a lot of countries in Europe. If you want to be up to date, visit the observatory. So this is really a reference website where you have a lot of information. They produce quarterly report, and it's also very valid information. And you can register to the post and receive, let's say, regular updates directly by email. They organized end of May a very interesting workshop where there were discussions on the commercial launch in Europe with some specific presentation from operators. And also the observatory is working on how to define the right set of metrics and KPI in order to assess the maturity of the deployment in Europe of 5G technology in the coming years. So this is a lot of interesting studies. So I just extract what you can find in the quarterly report or what you can find in the material of the workshop that was made fully available. So basically, when you look at what is happening, let's say, globally in terms of commercial deployment, but also trials, so they counted 147 trials happening on 5G so far. So the report was released in April. And then you see also the activities, because again, vertical test, we have also the corridors that, 5G and automotive, 5G and industry, but the corridors is also one important asset at European level, and it is planned to not only work on a test corridor, but also later on to really invest in a deployment corridor. So for the next program, 2021-2027, it is also planned to put a specific investment in this context of deployment corridor. So you can see in the report, we don't have time to go in details, but how the trials and pilots are spread over Europe and are spread also by category of vertical sector. So there is a lot of quantification in the observatory. So again, my key message, visit the observatory if you want to have, let's say, up-to-date information. So now let's move also, last time we talked in the context of the global events, there were ahead of us the Pioneer Award, 5G Pioneer Award, and the awards during the Mobile World Congress. So you certainly have seen that Deutsche Telekom developing this 5G ecosystem, working with application developer and startupper was awarded with a Pioneer Award. So clearly with a very active development on 5G. And then also to spot another award, there are a lot of awards, but this specific Industry Partnership Award that was granted to Hamburg Port Authority, so clearly a vertical sector with logistics, transportation, plus Deutsche Telekom and Nokia. And that is in direct connection to this PPP 5G Monarch project. So Monarch, if you like to discuss with almost all the PPP projects active now, you can visit on the booth and you can discuss also, for instance, with this specific case of Monarch test. So now, I just mentioned you that there are a lot of activities further working with the vertical sector to really understand what are the requirements, what are the expectations, and to explain what 5G brings to the vertical sector, and also to really innovate and define new use cases, and at the end, what is most important, create value, create value. So as you can see, the different vertical sector and some of the associations are highlighted in this slide. With some of the associations, there are already MOU that have been signed and specific action that are ongoing, as you can see on the slide. Then just to spot an example of activity, there was beginning of February a dedicated vertical workshop organized in Brussels with association to address cross-sector the 5G benefit and what 5G will bring to the different sector. So this was this is very interesting approach, but because this is really cross-sectorial, and the idea is also to further work cross-sector and identify what would be the need and the different technical aspects to be further progressed in the standardization context. So the next workshop will be organized 9th and 10th of July in Roma under invitation to further work with the different vertical associations. So now I'm giving a very, very brief view to raise your interest possibly, and why not to visit what is happening in the context of the PPP and what we do on different perspectives on 5G research innovation, really to be sure that we contribute to best define what is the expected 5G. So in the context of the PPP and the phase 2 project, we have this so-called vertical cartography, where we have developed a specific website where you can use filtering function and see what are the different use cases, who are the different stakeholders, and what is prototype, what is tested, piloted in the context of the PPP. So this is live, and this is up to date with information from project joining step by step the PPP. Then there is what we call also this platform cartography. So we have the chance to have 3 platform projects that have started middle of last year and who are also present during this week in Valencia, and who really develop and host specific development to both prove let's say the KPI, so the performance KPI, and also engage with vertical stakeholders, proposing the platform as an enabler, as a tool to develop and validate specific use cases. So basically, these projects are located in many different places in Europe, as you can see on the map. And now, starting 1st of June, come these 7 projects addressing focusing on vertical pilots, and will work on the basis of the platform from the platform project. And they will also bring additional nodes, additional platform to complement the portfolio. So basically, this is just, there is also a dedicated web page on the PPP website where you can find information on the platform features, capabilities, and we develop also specific cartography related to the supported KPI, validated KPI, and also vertical use cases supported by the platform. So this is so I encourage you to, if you are interested, to visit the website because you can find up-to-date information. One additional highlight is also this very nice website where beyond the PPP project is this cartography of existing platforms all over Europe that are proposed for specific development, working with ecosystem stakeholder, prototyping, creating innovation, de-risking. So it's including the platform in the PPP, but it's also broader, and it's also a nice tool where you can navigate geographically and you can have information on the different platforms. One slide to highlight the corridor. So since I've met last time, this is also clearly work developing. So we have the 3 corridor projects. Carmen, Croco, and Mobix having starting in November last year and now running full speed. There will be additional corridor project expected later on with a call for proposal closing in November. And basically, there is a lot of also good work and progressing the understanding of 5G/automotive / the different use cases that can apply and where 5G can be very useful. And again, I was mentioning that there will be, the plan is to have important budget in the next framework program to support the deployment corridor beyond, let's say, the test corridor. So on this slide, this is not readable on a small screen, but you can find this table that we also update regularly, where you see the different cities in the different European countries where there is 5G activity. So 5G activity, either research innovation, platform, vertical test, commercial deployment, corridor. So, and you see clearly again that Europe, with a lot of countries, a lot of operators, we have a lot of 5G activities all over Europe. And just to conclude, it was briefly mentioned earlier also by Pierce. So, okay, we have the 5G infrastructure PPP, but we also look beyond the 5G PPP for the period 2021-2027 at this so-called smart network and services targeted partnership. So I give you here a dedicated public URL link where if you are interested to know more, you can find some information. There is a lot of work progressing at this stage, but this is a public reference. So this is concluding my talk, 360 overview of activity in Europe, but as you understand, this is extremely active today.